This is the Roots and All Budcast, presented by Sarah Wilson.
Hello, and welcome to the Roots and All Budcast. Today I wanted to talk about a garden festival that I went to last Saturday that was held at Hortus Loci. Now, if you're in the horticultural trade, you will probably have heard of Hortus Loci because they're a very large nursery that supplies plants to the trade, and they're noted particularly for their ability to grow and supply plants for show gardens. So if you've been to somewhere like the Chelsea Flower Show or watched it on the telly, you will doubtlessly have seen some, if not many, of their plants. So I saw the garden festival mentioned on Twitter and decided to go along and use it as an opportunity to have a look around the Hortus Loci Plant Centre. As it's sited over at Hook in Hampshire, it's not one of my local nurseries, so the garden festival looked like a good excuse to make the journey over there. And there were two things that caught my eye about the festival in particular. The first was that it was billed as a vegan garden festival. So I thought veganism is something I'm interested in. I went vegan last year and I can get a bit stuck for ideas when I'm cooking. And there was the promise of some food related stuff. And the second was that Cleve West was speaking at the festival. And again, if you're involved in horticulture, I'm guessing you've heard of Cleve West. But if you're not and or you haven't, Cleve is probably best known for his garden design. He's had a glittering career in design, including a catalogue of show garden successes that make even the best designers in the world pretty enviable. Plus, he's released a book entitled Our Plot, where he charts the ups and downs of his allotment. I haven't really done his career justice with that brief summary, but a quick Google of his name and you'll soon find out quite how good he is. And for a while now, I've been noticing occasional posts from Cleve on social media and noticing that he's been unflinching, to say the least, in his promotion of veganism and animal rights. And he recently tweeted with exasperation at Gardener's Question Time, which, if you haven't already listened, is available in podcast format. And it's a BBC Radio 4 institution, much like Gardener's World on the telly. And I'm paraphrasing, but the gist of his tweet was, why do you keep advising listeners to pour boiling water on ants when ants play such an important role in the ecology of a garden? And of course, he's dead right. And I replied, also not in so many words, that yes, it's ridiculous. And it's these kinds of outdated, cruel, unnecessary and frankly ridiculous attitudes that are so often repeated parrot fashion within horticulture and the garden media, and that these are actually what prompted me, in part, to start this podcast in the first place. Most gardeners are incredibly environmentally aware and very in tune with the natural world. So why this pathological belief that we need to wage war on any animal species that we perceive as a nuisance or as threatening to our plants or our enjoyment of the garden? It's NIMBYism of the highest and most destructive order. And you may have seen my recent blog post on slugs in the garden, in which I state the need for us to see the garden as a whole and not try to eradicate things that annoy us the moment that we spot them. So I'm very much on board with the no-kill policy that Cleve has adopted on his plot and is very much a proponent of. So I was really interested to hear about how he became vegan, which was the subject of his talk. And I've blogged about my day at the festival, and it's currently the latest post on my website if you're listening when this podcast is released. And if you'd like to read it, that would be great. But in summary, the whole day was somewhat of a light bulb moment for me, because what I realised was that even though I now eat a vegan diet and I avoid animal products, I'd never really thought about the implications of my choices as a gardener. And I like to think that I'm pretty open-minded, and I like to question authority and the accepted view, probably as any of my poor unfortunate ex-bosses or teachers will tell you. But I realised through listening to Cleve and the other speakers that horticulture is underpinned by so many laws, that's LORES, by the way, and rules and traditions and received wisdoms and expected ways of doing things that even someone like me has just taken it and swallowed it down and excreted it as practices that are sometimes really damaging and actually blindly stupid. And I think anybody who's come up through an education in horticulture or through one of the many institutions that teach you how to garden or any of the gardens that currently employ these practices, you are probably all this stuff is much more ingrained in you than, say, somebody who's self-taught. And I think that I hadn't twigged that veganism or vegetarianism, or even just a concern for animals, could be formally equated with gardening in any way. And as stupid as that makes me sound, it really did explain a lot. There's nothing to stop me extending my principles as an animal lover through my work in horticulture. And the last speaker at the event was Matthew Appleby, who is a journalist for Horticulture Week. And again, if you're not involved in the trade, you probably won't have heard of him, but he's very well respected in the industry for his investigative and his frank journalism. And I had no idea that he's also vegan. And he was speaking about his new book, which is called The Super Organic Gardener, which unfortunately I think doesn't really do justice to the contents of it, because the subtitle is Everything You Need to Know About a Vegan Garden. And that there is the point of this podcast, really. You can have a vegan garden. You may already have a vegan garden. I pretty much have, but what I was doing was vegan gardening unwittingly, and I didn't have a name for what I was doing. So all those times I didn't want to use blood, fish and bone, or I refused to work around a client's pond when the ground was covered in thousands of baby toads, or when I refused to apply slug pellets or insecticide sprays. There's a name for what I'm doing, and I'd just like to say that I am not a fan of labels or movements or anything that says what you can and can't do or what you should and shouldn't do. But actually, for the first time ever, I found a club that I wouldn't mind being a member of. So what is vegan gardening? That's what Matthew was talking about. Basically, it's gardening without the use of any animal products. So fertilisers that contain animal products or byproducts of the slaughtering process are a no-no. Composts that contain these products are a no-no. No manures can be used, and there's no harming of animals. So, traps are out, poisons are out, insecticides are out, and basically anything that's going to harm animals in your garden. But as Matthew said in his talk, it's not really about what you can't use, it's about what you can. And I read into that, and I might be misconstruing him, but I think that to be too prescriptive and a bit preachy about not using certain products probably won't be helpful in getting people on board with the idea. And I get the feeling that there isn't really a formal set of rules about what vegan gardening entails, because people simply haven't given it that much collective thought or come up with a coherent plan. A search on the internet will reveal pretty scant information on the topic, and even different names for it. So you've got vegan gardening, and I also found the term veganic gardening, which, as it sounds, is a portmanteau of vegan and organic. So it seems very much in its infancy, if not in practice, then certainly in a formal theory surrounding it. So if you're interested in finding out more, because I know I am, I haven't read Matthew's book, but I think that's probably quite a good place to start. I've pre-ordered my copy. I'm not getting paid to say this, by the way. And it's out on the 30th of November, and you can pre-order it from his publisher, who is Pen and Sword, or from Amazon. And I reckon you should watch this space too, because now I know what I've been doing all these years was vegan gardening. I fully intend to explore this further and to refine my own practices. And I hope you'll be willing to follow me on the journey, even if you're not vegan, because if we have the opportunity to make things a bit easier and better for animals, and we can find alternatives that don't cost a whole lot of time or money, then why wouldn't we? So that's it. So thank you as always for listening, and I will catch you next Tuesday.
For more information, visit the Roots and All website at rootsandall.co.uk. To download more episodes, visit iTunes, your favourite podcast provider, or get them direct from our website.